This program was made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Think about yourself as a first grader, a second grader, a third grader, a fourth grader, a fifth grader, a sixth grader, a seventh grader. Those are really some challenging years for kids, and it would, in a perfect world, if every child came to school ready to learn and they were loved and they were fed and they'd had a really calm morning and their mom and dad and whoever loves them and takes care of them had given them a big hug and sent them out the door or onto the bus or dropped them off with a smile on their face. But we know that that's not really what happens. So a lot of kids come to school and a lot of kids have a lot of challenges. And in rural areas or even in inner city areas, one of the things I've realized as an educator is a kid is a kid, and they have the same basic needs. They need to be loved, they need to be accepted, they need to be encouraged, they need to be supported, they need to have their basic needs met on a consistent level on a daily basis.
This program is a part of American Graduate. Let's make it happen. A public media initiative made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Poverty has a huge impact on families. Nobody would ask to be born into poverty. Nobody would choose that. So when children are born into poverty, they have no choice over what family they're born into, what state they're born into, what country, what religious background. Children are just children, and so they are products a lot of times of their environment.
We have a difficult time keeping a great workforce that offers something for everybody. And that kind of trickles down into a family and the resources then that a child has.
You can tell the kids that haven't eaten a lot over the weekend because Monday morning, when they come to school, they're ready to eat and they clear out everything and they're taking, leftovers and stuff. So that's a problem because if you're hungry, you're not ready to learn.
I lived in a little blue house that was across the street from public housing. My parents separated and I found myself living in public housing. And so I became a single mother and lived in public housing again, kind of following that same footstep. I just thought that was the thing to do. So I raised my first daughter in public housing. And so I've seen 3 levels of that. Being a kid living in the nice house, being a kid living in what people perceive as the projects, raising a kid in the projects, and now moving my children outside of the projects. So sometimes it's just your address, whether that is what friends can come and stay the night with you, what people perceive is going on inside your home.
With elementary, what I see as the greatest impact to their education and to their lives is probably their socioeconomic level, mainly because of just the experiences that they're not exposed to, as opposed to children who've been to a zoo, who have some type of consistent family life, consistent expectations as far as homework. You have someone that you're accountable to. Again, I'll go back to a lot of these children are really responsible for much of their self-care, and that would include studying. I mean, it would include getting their homework, doing their homework, because there's just not a great deal of adult interaction. It's, there's someone supervising them, but they're not actively involved in their education and even their after-school play and things like that. They're just kind of left on their own with maybe older siblings, kids in the neighborhood. And there's nothing wrong with that to an extent, but you definitely need, the adult supervision and intervention and the hands-on help with directing your studies and, what you do each afternoon and things.
I have a lot of students that, even at the 4th grade level, they'll tell me, I can't go to college, which is a long time away, but they say I can't go to college, my parents can't afford it, and I say, well, I'm still paying for mine, and my parents couldn't afford it either, but it got me, there's options out there when that time comes to go to school.
When I was growing up in Hickman County, Tennessee, rural county, and trying to think about what do I want to do when I grow up. So I'm a middle schooler, I'm thinking about what inspires me. I'm remembering an experience where I was sitting in a library where all of us were crowded around the tiny little TV, and a couple of hundred kids trying to watch one of the shuttle launches, and I knew right away that was it. That was it. I wanted to do that. I wanted to be a part of that story. So when I started asking my teachers, what kinds of classes should I take? What is a scientist? What is an engineer? I wasn't getting the answers that I thought were going to kind of help me figure out what classes I needed to take, what college I was going to go to. But the one thing that I did have in my corner was I had engineers in my family. I knew what engineering was. So even though I was asking those questions, I already had an understanding. So when I think today about the fact that I'm working with young people growing up in rural situations, much like what I grew up in, who don't even have access to what is that career, and they start asking questions just like me. Maybe they're inspired to make a difference in the world. They want to make a mark by making sure nobody goes hungry. Or maybe they decide they want to be a part of space exploration. Or they decide they want to make the fastest car possible for the cheapest amount so everybody can have it. Whatever motivates a young person to think about the fact that they may be asking questions just like I was, and not having the ability to know that it's okay to ask those questions, that it's okay to, if you don't get the answer that you want. So when I think about rural situations, especially around K-12 education, I'm always reminded of what did I have access to growing up, and what would I like to make sure that the next generation of students have access to.
And I also tell them that in 4th grade, if they don't like the way their home life is right now, there's nothing they can do to change that, but education's where it starts. So if they get a good education, they can change their life when they're an adult. They don't have to, generation after generation live in a trailer or an apartment, and if that's what they want, that's okay. I'm not saying that's bad, but if they want to better themselves, then education's where it starts.
Chronic stress is just that gnawing stress that a child has inside them that never goes away. It's something that they're always worried about. Is there going to be enough food? Are we going to have enough money? Is my mom going to have enough gas to put in the car to come and pick me up? Am I going to be allowed back on the bus now that I've been kicked off the bus because someone bullied me and I said something really ugly and now I don't have any way to get to school? All those kinds of things. Kids in poverty, or again, kids in all walks of life, have to deal with on a daily basis.
A lot of traumas that can happen in a child's life, it's not just that you have to kind of process it individually for that day, but we know trauma and toxic stress changes the actual brain architecture for that individual child. So you have to attend to them individually too.
An additional struggle that children have is just the challenges that sometimes the family is going through. There are children being raised by grandparents. There are children who don't see one of their parents, maybe haven't seen them since birth. And one of the wonderful ways we have of providing support for those children is that Putnam County Schools works hand in hand with Heart of the Cumberland to provide BEST groups to students during the school day. And BEST stands for Be Each Other's Support Team. And it's a place for kids to help other people. And I tell them, I said, if anyone asks why you come, you tell them you're helping other people, because you are. And what happens on that very first day when kids begin to realize, I'm not the only one who doesn't live with my mom and dad. There are other people right here in my grade and my school who are just like me, and they can breathe, and they can relax, and they can be themselves. And it's just the most freeing thing for these students to realize that they're not alone and that it's normal. All of the feelings they have had and experienced, the other students will agree, yes, I have felt that way. Yes, I have wondered about that. Yes, that is a struggle for me. And it's just freeing to know that you're not alone.
When the ASA study was conducted, they looked at 10 items to score folks, and over the course of the study, they recognized that the more adverse childhood experiences someone had, the more likely they were to have negative health outcomes, and as well as early death. And some of those items that they looked at were divorce of parents, the child being sexually abused, physically abused, emotionally abused, witnessing domestic violence, and there were several other things. But since the time of that study, we also know some other things that are considered an ACE is witnessing community violence, being in a natural disaster, being homeless, some other things like that. So you really have to recognize that if a child is going through that, it's not just that they had a difficult day or that there's difficulty created from that, but as children experience those, we recognize that their brain architecture actually changes, and their brain functioning is not as efficient, and that toxic stress we just know creates that. So it creates a child that looks differently from one who has not experienced those.
We've actually found that grief from a death is the easiest to process because of the finality of it. That grief from never getting to see a biological parent or being concerned about a parent who might be incarcerated or using drugs, those kinds of loss are sometimes more challenging because students don't know when things might change or how they might change and what the impact will be for them.
Children that suffer from different disabilities in the rural school systems have real advocates, and that is the guidance counselor, the school psychologist, their classroom teacher, their parent, and they can have an individualized learning plan created, and that is a bonding document that teachers and everyone has to follow. So those are really great things that rural school systems have in place to make sure that the needs of all children are being met.
We have a focus on at-risk children and exceptional learners. That's a big part of our focus. And inclusion and working with all students and valuing all students within the classroom. Inclusion means the integration of children who are seemingly different in the general education classroom with the supports they need to be successful. So inclusion is not necessarily children with special needs. Inclusion is much more than that. Inclusion is inclusion of children who speak different languages, who have different physical needs, different cognitive needs, all within one classroom. And so we stress and we work with our pre-service teachers, these are our future teachers, that these are all your students and you must claim them all. And you must do whatever you can do to help the child be successful academically, yes, but also to feel safe, to feel emotionally safe. All of these are the responsibility of the teacher, and that is recognized now. It's much more than just teaching content. It is recognizing the whole child and working with the whole child. That's a big part of our teacher education programs. One thing I think that is new in rural education or beginning to be recognized more in rural education is the need for general education teachers to have solid practices and methods for working with English language learners or students whose English is not their first language. We're seeing that more in rural education and rural sites than we had seen before, the need for that.
Our Hispanic families are really an awesome group of people to work with. Of course, number one barrier is the language. Most of them, a lot of times the fathers can speak English a lot better than the mothers. The mothers are homemakers and the dads are out working, a lot of times on jobs that are from, sun up to sundown. And so speaking to them is different. So the school system has interpreters that we use, that we try to interpret all of our notes that go home. But also, they struggle providing all the resources needed to have their children, to provide for their children. So they might have 5 or 6 children in the family, and that makes it difficult to have enough of everything. So that's another challenge, and plus a lot of them come from Guatemala, Mexico, and other countries where their educational system is different than it is here.
Our area is growing a lot. The Spanish families have come from different cultures. We have the main dialects are 3 of them, which any of us here speak a dialect, and it's a barrier for the kids because they try to share with the parents what they learn, and they cannot have any reinforcement at home due to the lack of communication.
We don't choose our color, and we don't choose where we are born, you know, what area of the world we're born in. And if you are born, I say, what if you were born in Mexico? What would you want for your children? So, and obviously then they put their foot in their mouth, because any good person with a good heart that has children wants their children to do better than they did. So I say, whether you're illegal or legal, you're going to want to get your child or children to a better place, and America's the best place on earth. So, and if your border's connecting with no water in between it, you're going to do whatever you can to get your children here, to get them educated and good health care and food. And we have so many programs here in the United States that they don't have in other countries. And so I don't blame them for that. I wish they would do it legally, but, you know, even with that said, I would do anything for my child, and if that meant crossing a border illegally, I would do that.
Many times the kids are the most wonderful interpreters, because I can translate from Spanish to English or vice versa, but I cannot certainly do what they do. They amaze me every day because they can speak their 2 mom and dad's dialect plus Spanish plus English. And the mentality of people in many of our communities have to change, because somebody had the attitude that they're in America, they need to learn English, but they don't realize that they are the ones that are being left behind, because they now know your language and mine, but you don't know either one. So that makes things difficult.
Challenges are always occurring in the lives of children and their families. But strong partnerships between the school system, public housing, public safety, faith-based organizations, and caring, consistent adults provide solutions for these challenges.
Those kinds of experiences early in life are what shape who I am and what I do. And so they're the motivation that kind of guide me to help, in partnership with others, figure out what is part of the solution for STEM education, access for rural students, access for families, moms and dads, and kids. So many of the programs that we stand up here in the Oakley STEM Center are family-oriented, because we want the conversation to start with the family.
We have numerous ongoing programs throughout the year for our youth. One of our most popular and well-known programs is our Teens Need Training After School program. Within the past year, we've started Kids Matter, which is an after-school reading program for children that live in Cookeville that are in grades K through 4. Also, we do a Fall Fun Day. We do an Easter egg hunt on Good Friday, and we participate in our National Association's What Home Means to Me poster contest.
I don't think the parents work with them like they should. I don't think they try to teach them the things they need to learn. The schools are having to teach children some of the things the parents have already taught them.
We just try to make sure that they know that there's a different path out there for them, that they are not determined by where their parents have went, that they're not determined, their future is not determined by their parents' past.
We've had families before that maybe didn't have a place to live. And then we found resources to try to get them to where they were living in, living in a hotel for a little while their housing was getting ready. We've done things like provide meals for families that, we just knew they were really having a hard time.
We have the T&T program that focuses on children that live in or near public housing, Highlands Residential Services. We've had a partnership with the Cookeville Housing Authority, which is now Highlands Residential Services, for several years, and we're working with a special group. say like 23 children in our program. And then we have a teeny weeny program that there are several children in that program. That program helps. It helps more than just the 23 children we have in the program, because these 23 have friends that don't come to the program. Those children are affected because they don't get to do the same things they would normally do if these friends were with them. Also, we only have them 2 days a week, but it still helps them for the other 5 days of the week because it cuts up their week some, and they don't seem to be as bored at home. Plus, they also want to be good because they want to stay in our program.
We try to just bring encouragement and hope to these students. Last year in the schools in both Putnam and Overton County, we served about 322 students. We're in every middle and elementary school in Putnam County, and last year I believe we were in all of Overton County schools except one. So it is free to students. There is no charge to students. Parental permission is required. So if a parent was interested in their students participating in a BEST group, they would need to contact the school counselor. We do certain schools on first semester and other schools on second semester. So, if they've missed it for this year, they can certainly consider it for the following year.
We have to kind of be flexible with our students as well. If they're worried about something that happened the night before, we have guidance counselors to talk to them. I talk to them a lot of times. We might give them a little extra time in the morning to get things settled before, classes start. If we know they're hungry, we give food to them, let them eat in the classroom, just to make sure, because we know, you can't focus if your stomach's growling or if you're worried about something. So we just have to be real understanding, but we still, while you're understanding there's a lot going on in their lives, we still have to keep high expectations for them to achieve academically.
There are resources available to assist with parents to give them some ideas and strategies for helping their children. One is through the Stevens Center, and that meets at the Episcopal Church. Another is PEP, and that meets during the lunchtime at different school campuses, and that's parents encouraging parents, and it's got various topics: discipline, how to raise a reader, just different things that'll help your child be more successful.
What the schools do at their individual places is they look at the data for their students, and they target those kids that are either below basic or that bottom 25%, depending upon the types of benchmarks or tests that they're using to look at that information. Those are the students that they will actually specially invite to make sure that they know about the program, are aware of the program, to utilize as a tool to help them with their academic needs.
When we first initially see that maybe a child is a little bit behind his or her peers, then we start immediately with what we call RTI Response Intervention, and it's through the State Department, and we will pull the kids for 30 minutes for reading or 30 minutes for math, whatever their need is, and start reteaching their skills at their level. So we're really focusing on closing the gap as soon as we know it's there, and so that it's a distant memory for the child and not something that follows them all the way through their career.
Another resource that we have available is called the Lending Library, which is actually a collection of science equipment which is aimed at helping students to understand their academic standards through the exploration of science and math. So we allow this equipment to be checked out not only to teachers, but also to parents or anyone who's working with school groups or school children for the purposes of teaching and education in science and math and engineering, so STEM. So we ask you to come and experience a training to understand how to use the equipment and provide us with the contact material and educate you on the procedure for picking it up and how to return it. And so to give you, as a member of the public, an opportunity then to work with children.
If you are the parent of a child or you are working with a child that has chronic stress in their life, here are some things that you can do to help alleviate and eliminate that stress. Set the stage for the child's long-term adjustment to their life challenges. Be direct and honest with them about what is happening. Answer all of their questions. Maintain your own composure. Understand that children often blame themselves for life challenges that they themselves have no control over.
It's so self-rewarding. It's, you know, not every day is a good day, but I leave it at the doorstep when I come in here. And it's just to make a kid smile, to see them grow from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, to help them with their problems inside of school and outside of school. It really feels good when they confide in you and trust you and come to you when they need help.
For more resources, check out PBS Parents. There you can find advice on how to raise a caring child, advice on family adventures, and things that you can do to make your child a caring, happy child.
This program is a part of American Graduate. Let's make it happen. A public media initiative made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. This program was made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.